The fluorescent lights of Lincoln Elementary buzzed their familiar hum as Marcus wiped down the last row of desks in classroom 3B. His hands moved mechanically, muscle memory guiding each stroke while his mind wandered to the hospital room where his daughter lay fighting for her life. He'd left Emma just 2 hours ago, her small frame barely making a dent in the sterile white sheets, her laugh, once bright as summer sunshine, reduced to a weak smile that broke his heart into smaller pieces each day. The doctors had been clear: without a bone marrow transplant, his 8-year-old daughter had maybe 3 months. Marcus had been tested, her grandparents had been tested, distant cousins he barely knew had rolled up their sleeves with hope in their eyes. None of them matched. He was running out of time, running out of options, running out of the faith that had sustained him since Emma's mother walked out 6 years ago, leaving him with a colicky toddler and a mountain of unpaid bills. The sound of sobbing pulled him from his thoughts. Marcus froze, mop in hand, listening. The school had been empty for hours, teachers gone, students scattered to their evening routines, even the principal had waved goodbye at 5:30. But there it was again, a hitching, desperate cry coming from the girls' bathroom down the hall. He hesitated. His job description didn't exactly cover crisis intervention, and he knew how people could be, how they looked at a single black man approaching their daughters, regardless of his intentions. But the crying continued, raw and painful, the sound of someone truly suffering. "Hello," Marcus called softly, stopping outside the bathroom door. "Are you okay in there? Do you need me to call someone?" The crying stopped abruptly. Silence stretched like taffy until a small voice finally emerged. "Please don't call anyone. Please. They'll just make it worse." Marcus recognized that voice. Sophie Chen, a 6th grader who always sat alone at lunch, hunched over her books like they were the only friends she needed. He'd seen the other kids whisper and point, seen the photos they'd shoved in her face that made her eyes well with tears. "Sophie. It's Mr. Marcus, the janitor. I'm not going to call anyone if you don't want me to, but I can't just leave you here upset. Can you at least tell me if you're hurt?" Another long pause. Then the door creaked open, and Sophie emerged, her face blotchy and swollen, mascara running in dark rivers down her cheeks. She clutched her phone like a lifeline, and even from a distance, Marcus could see the cruelty displayed on the screen. A photo of Sophie, clearly doctored to make her look monstrous, with the caption, "Freak Show," and dozens of laughing emoji reactions. "They edited my picture," Sophie whispered, her voice hollow. "Posted it everywhere. They're saying I'm a monster, that I should just disappear. Maybe they're right." Something in those last words, the resignation, the defeat, sent ice through Marcus's veins. He'd heard that tone before, in the voice of a friend from high school who'd jumped from the Morrison Bridge 20 years ago. He lowered himself to sit on the hallway floor, his back against the lockers, looking up at this child who was contemplating the unthinkable. "Can I tell you something, Sophie?" Marcus said quietly. "My daughter Emma, she's in the hospital right now. She's really sick, and I'm terrified every single day that I'm going to lose her. You know what she told me last week? She said she was sorry for being sick, for being such a burden. An 8-year-old baby apologizing for having cancer." Sophie's eyes widened, fresh tears spilling over. "I told her the same thing I'm going to tell you," Marcus continued, his voice steady despite the emotion welling in his chest. "You're not a monster. You're not a burden. You're a human being with value and purpose, and the people who can't see that, that's their failure, not yours. Those kids posting that garbage, they're the ones who need to take a hard look in the mirror." Sophie slid down the wall to sit beside him, her phone falling forgotten to her lap. "Do you really believe that? That I have value?" "I know it," Marcus said firmly. "Emma's been asking me to bring her homework so she doesn't fall behind. You know who her teacher says is the only kid who volunteered to organize the get well cards? You're the one who stayed after class 3 times to make sure every single card was perfect. That's not a monster, Sophie. That's an angel." They sat in silence for a while, two broken people finding unexpected comfort in the empty hallway of Lincoln Elementary. Finally, Sophie spoke. "Can I ask you something? About Emma? Anything. What kind of sick is she?" "Leukemia. She needs a bone marrow transplant, but we can't find a match." Sophie's brow furrowed. "My mom works at Portland General Hospital. She's a hematologist, a blood doctor. She's always talking about the bone marrow registry and how there aren't enough diverse donors. Marcus felt something shift in his chest but didn't dare hope. That's actually where Emma is. Small world. What's her last name? Washington. Emma Washington, room 407. Sophie pulled out her phone, that same device that had delivered so much pain, and typed rapidly. My mom's name is Dr. Lisa Chen. I'm going to text her right now. She checks the patient list every night anyway. Sophie, you don't have to. You just saved my life, Mr. Marcus, Sophie interrupted, her voice stronger now. Let me try to help save Emma's. 3 days later, Marcus was sitting beside Emma's bed when Dr. Chen walked in with Sophie trailing behind her, looking nervous but determined. Emma perked up, recognizing her classmate. Hi, Sophie. Emma's voice was weak but genuine. Did you finish all the get well cards? I did, Sophie said, moving to the bedside. And I brought you something. She handed Emma a card, handmade, with a drawing of 2 girls holding hands under a rainbow. For when you get better. So we can be real friends, not just homework friends. Dr. Chen cleared her throat, and Marcus noticed she was trying not to cry. Mr. Washington, I ran some tests. I'm in the registry. I signed up years ago but never got called. Sophie told me about Emma, and I asked them to run a comparison. The world seemed to tilt. And I'm a match. Not perfect, but close enough. If you're willing, I'd like to be Emma's donor. Marcus couldn't speak. He looked at Sophie, at Drive. Chen, at his daughter's face lighting up with a hope he thought he'd never see again. Finally, he found his voice. Why? You don't even know us. Dr. Chen smiled through her tears. Sophie came home 3 nights ago and told me about a janitor who sat on a dirty floor to talk her out of the darkest moment of her life. Who reminded her that she matters. You gave me back my daughter, Mr. Washington. This is just biology. What you did, that was humanity at its finest. The transplant happened 4 weeks later. As Marcus sat in the waiting room, Sophie beside him working on homework, he thought about the strange chain of events that had led them here. A moment of kindness in a hallway. A simple truth spoken to a hurting child. A doctor who signed up for a registry years ago, never knowing she'd save the daughter of the man who saved hers. 8 months after that, Emma and Sophie stood together in the Lincoln Elementary talent show, belting out a slightly off-key rendition of Lean on Me, while their parents watched from the audience. Tissues in hand. Emma's hair was growing back in uneven patches she wore proudly, and Sophie stood tall, no longer hunched over in shame. Sometimes the monsters aren't the people others tell us we are. Sometimes the monsters are loneliness, despair, and the feeling that nobody cares. And sometimes, all it takes to defeat those monsters is another person willing to sit on a floor, look us in the eye, and remind us, you're not a monster. You matter. You're loved.